This is the grade 11 CAT practical from November 2020. It's an exemplar from the Department of Education for the Eastern Cape. And in this video, we're looking at the Excel question, which is question 3. So we have question 3 here. I've opened up the file already. Here is the spreadsheet, Wild Coast Visitors. And they want us to go on. Now, always take note of which worksheet you're working in. Make sure that you always start with the right worksheet. So they want the information worksheet. Yes, we are on the information worksheet. So that's correct. You don't want to be working and trying to figure out stuff and you're on the wrong sheet. So format the worksheet as follows. We want to merge and center row 1 from A1 to Q1. So from A1 to Q1. Let's go try that. So from A1, so there's A1. Up until Q1, up until there's Q1, A1 to Q1, and we want to merge and center it. Is that it? Is that all that they wanted? Merge and center the row. So there we go. So there we go. There we go. It's done. Easy. Boom. Then next question. Apply a from corner shading style to the merge style using two colors, yellow and blue. Oh, okay. So from corner shading style to the merge style, two colors, yellow and blue. So I don't know what to do. I'm going to right click on it. When in doubt, right click, and we're going to format it. And shading normally has to do with the fill. So I'm going to come here to fill and see. So these are solid colors. So I don't think it's a pattern. So let's try fill effects and let's see. So shading. Oh, there's from corner. There we go. So we can see the word that we're looking for. So we want from the corner, and they said two colors, yellow and blue. So we want yellow as the one color and blue as the other. Now blue is already selected. I don't think it'll make a difference what we do. So we're going to say from corner, shading, yellow and blue. Boom. So let's have a look. It's going to look something like that. Go, okay. So there we go. So I think we've done all that. So have we done the shading from the corner? Yes. That style, merged, two colors. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's correct. We're on the right track. Now insert today's date in D2 and it must be formatted like that. Now that format, you can see it is the day, 2 days, then a dash, then 3 for the month, and then a dash, then 4 for the year. Just remember that format. So in D2, we want to put the today's date. So I'm not going to just type in the date of today. I'm actually going to put in the formula for today's date, which is today. And that will give me today's date, which as you can see, I'm doing this on the 31st, on Halloween. Ooh, it's spooky. So I've done this on that date, but that's not the format we want. So I'm going to right click on it and go to format the cells. And we don't want to change the fill this time. We want to go to the number and we want to change the date to a particular format. Now I'm looking there. None of those formats for the date match what I want. I want dashes and stuff like that, and there's the one with dashes, but it's not in the right order. So I'm going to come here to custom, and when I come to custom, you can use Y's, M's, and D's to make the format that you want. So we want two letters to represent the date or the day, then a dash, then we want 3 for the month, which is a M, so M, 1, 2, 3, and then we want a dash, and then we want 4 characters for the year, which we use a Y for that. So I'm going to do a Y. As you can see there, you can see what it looks like, and you can see that is the format. That is exactly how we want it to look for that format. So I'm going to go, okay, boom, and there it's in the format that we want. Okay, so obviously it's not the 20th of November because that's when they wrote the paper. Okay, so there we go. Ensure that all the text in row 4 is visible without widening the column. So we want to change row 4, the entire, select row 4, and we want to make sure that we are going to widen it. We don't want to widen the column, so we want to be able to see all the text. So we're going to Kendrick Lamar it. I mean, we're going to wrap the text. We're going to wrap it. So let's wrap it. I selected the column, the whole row 4, and let's go wrap, and there we go. So we can see all the text. It's not very nicely spaced out. We probably would want to widen it, but they said we mustn't widen it. So just Kendrick Lamar, widen it. Okay, that's easy 1 mark. Now use a feature in that the contents from row 1 to 4 remain on the screen when the user scrolls down. So when we scroll down, do you see we can't see rows 1 to 4. We want to make sure that 1 to 4 stay locked, or as we say, frozen. We want to freeze them. So I'm going to go and freeze those rows. So I'm going to go here to review. I think it's in review. Not review? No, view. It's under view. There we go. There's the freeze panes. Now we can freeze the top row or the first column, or we want specific row. Now I want to move my mouse, select the block. I'm selecting the block over there. I'm selecting A5. The reason for that is whatever's to the left of that block will be frozen. I don't care I want everything to be seen. So that's why I'm going right to column A. But everything above that block will be frozen. That's why I went to A5, because I want 1 to 4 to be frozen. I don't care about the left because there's nothing to the left to be frozen, but everything above that block will be frozen. So I'm going to come here to freeze, and I'm going to go freeze panes. And you'll see this line just appeared here above row 4. Now if I scroll down, you see me scrolling. There we go. You can see the top stay the same. So whatever is above the cell that you've selected will be frozen. Whatever's to the left will be frozen. So if I wanted to keep that first column, I would have selected that block to keep those on the side when I scroll to the right. But we don't want that. We just want the top. So if you want to unfreeze it, you must just let it go, because that's what you've frozen. Just let it go. No, you unfreeze the panes if you want to redo it, if you want to change anything. So there we go. Okay, so there's the freezing option. So that's what we do. Okay, then they say use the spreadsheet feature to ensure that the data from row appear on every page and that the grid line. Okay, now they're talking about page and they're talking about grid lines. We're talking about when it's printed. There we go, when it's printed. So we want to go to the settings of it. Now there are two places where you can go to do the settings. So let's go have a look. Now the one place you can go is if we click on File over here and then go to the print options. There you can see I'm at the print options when I click on File. If you come here to page setup, now just be careful if we do it this way. This way is not going to work. It seems logical, and we get the page setup and we can go to the sheet and we can go, we want rows to repeat, but we can't change it here. It won't allow us to actually edit anything there. So just remember, you can't go this way. You actually need to go to the page layout option over here and to the page, exactly the same thing, but we want to go through this way. Page setup. So now when we go to page setup, now we do have access to these, and we want the first 4 rows to always appear at the top of every page. In other words, rows to repeat at top, and we can click on this little arrow and then we can select row 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we go. So row 1 to 4. So you don't type in anything, just select it manually. Don't. It's very tempting to type in 1-4. It won't work. You must select that arrow and then you select which ones you want. We want those ones. So those are the rows to repeat at the top. If there's rows you want to repeat to the Beyonce, to the left, then you would do that. And we want grid lines. So I'm going to click on the word grid lines and click OK. And so there we go. So let's go see what it looks like when we go to print it. So yeah, I'm at where I want to print it. Now you can see the grid lines, but unfortunately we can't. It's only one page, so we're not going to see that it's repeated on multiple pages. But it is working. So I think we have done those settings. So there we go. They're going to check the settings for your marks. Okay, now conditional formatting must apply to column G, and all the hotels must be in a reddish fill color, not font, fill color. Hotels in column G to a particular file. So let's go to G. Now, how do we know if it's a hotel? If the actual value of it is hotel. So we must format all of these. So you can select all of those. There we go. So we want all of them in case they change them. Don't do it manually. We want to use conditional formatting. Now, if I come to home, you'll see, there's conditional formatting. And we want to make a new rule. And I want if only cells that contain if it's equal to a particular word, if it's equal to the word hotel. Now I want to put it in double quotes. If it's equal to the text hotel, what do I want? I want the fill to be a reddish color. So we're going to change the format, and we don't want the font, we want the fill to be a reddish color. Now they've got red. I suppose you could do that, but yeah, as long as it's a reddish color. Technically that's reddish, but you could go more colors if you wanted a particular type of red. Maybe you wanted that type of red or something that's more like a pink, I don't know. But you can decide which one you want. So if I do that, if the cell's value is equal to the word hotel, the text hotel, it should go red. Okay, so now I didn't do anything. Why? Because of those double quotes. Let's go manage our rules. If something happened and changed, you see, I put double quotes in there for me. We actually didn't need to put the double quotes in. So I'm going to edit that rule. If you made a mistake and say, yeah, let's just take out those double quotes. We just want one set of double quotes, please. That's it. And go, okay. Okay. And there we go. So if you put in the double quotes, it'll actually put the double quotes in for you if you just type in the text. That was my bad. But if you did make a mistake and you thought maybe I should put the double quotes in, you can just go select obviously all the text and you go and manage your rules. Okay, and you can go and click on it and edit it, and you can change what you want to do if you've made a mistake or something like that. So there we go. You can see all the hotels are now in red-ish, sort of. We'll take it as red. Now, change the off-peak rates in column R to South African currency with no decimal places. So column R, so there we go, column R there, and we want those to be South African currency. So we're going to change the format of them. So when in doubt, right click, we're going to go to format cells, and we're going to change. You could use accounting or currency. That's fine. They both got the South African R. If not, you can go find it. And there we want 0 decimal places. There we go. So let's go OK. And there we go. Fantastic. Now we get into the fun part, the functions, putting fun back in functions. Okay, so we must use a function to display the highest peak rate for the accommodation in D6 or D67. Oh, so we're going to have to go all the way down to the bottom here. D67, there we go. We want the highest, which one? The highest peak rate. The highest peak rate, which would be column, that's the peak rate, which is column H. Do you see that? Column H. So we're going to go, now what's the first row is row 5, and you can see the last one is row 64. So we're going to go, we're going to use which function to find the highest? The max. From H5 colon to H64. You could have also dragged your mouse and selected all of them. That would also work. But if we do that, that will give me the highest peak rate. There we go. Fantastic. That's easy marks. Boom. Let's move on to the next formula. So we did the highest. So let's go on to the next one. Calculate in D69 the total deposit paid by the Chinese. What does that mean? I don't understand what that means. So it's so country. So if this country is Chinese, we must find out the total deposit paid by Chinese. So we total in the deposit, but only if they're Chinese. So we total in, is sum in, based on a condition. That's a sum if. Another clue is that it's 4 marks. Sum ifs are normally 4 things. Sum if with 3 parameters. So that's normally a clue. So deposit paid by the Chinese. So let's have a look. So the deposit, that's that column. I can't actually see. I'm going to make it bigger just so we can see the values there. So we can see the value. So we want to sum these only if the country says China. So we are going to use a sum if equals sum if open bracket. Now what range? Now the first range is where you look in. The second is the criteria. Then it's what you want to sum. So we want to sum the deposit. So that will be the sum range. But where are we looking for this criteria? We're looking for China inside of the country. So this column is the first range. We are looking in this range, E5 to E64. What are we looking for? We're looking for the word China, but that must be in double quotes. We're looking for the word China in E5 to E64. If we find a China in E60, in one of those columns, we then move to the deposit column. So that'll be L5 colon to L64. Now just make sure that your numbers match up. 5 to 64, 5 to 64. Then you know that it's working. So look in the blue column for the word China. If it is the word China, we then move to the L column and take that value and sum them all. So there we go. That should work. If I press enter, there we go. So there's the value that's been added. Fantastic. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. I think it's number 3.10. So use a formula in D71 to calculate the amount paid by that person, that family, for their stay in the hotel during the peak season. Okay, so we're going to do some formula to calculate how much they pay during the peak season, that person. So it's very weird that we're writing the answer for that person down here. We would normally do it in the particular row. So that's the first person. Luckily, it's the first person, thank goodness. So we want to work out how much they paid in the peak season. So we need the peak rate, which is H5, and that is the peak rate. Now that is per person, the number of people and the number of days. They don't actually explain this question very well. But basically, if you understand that that rate is normally per person, And so you would take, if there are 5 people, you would say 5 times about the peak rate, but that's for how much you would pay for 1 day, and they stay for 6 days. So you actually need to take that value times that value times that value. So we're going to multiply those 3 values. So what I'm going to do here is on that form, I'm going to say equals, and we're going to move up to the peak rate, because we want the peak rate, multiplied, I'll press the star, multiplied by how many people, so we times it by j, and then multiplying it by the number of days. Now we don't actually have to worry about brackets because multiplication will do all of them together. Multiplication doesn't affect that, so we don't have to worry with our BODMAS, so that will be fine. So that's how much that family is paying. That's quite a lot of money for 5 days or 6 days for 5 people per person. That's a lot. Okay, so there we go. So we've got the formula there. Now let's go to the next one. Use the function in, I think it's number 3.11, use the function in 73 to determine the number of visitors who did not pay the deposit. How do I know if they did not, they didn't, so it's blank. So either it would be 0 or blank, but yeah, you can see the people that didn't pay a deposit, it is blank. So we want to count how many deposits are blank. So those who didn't pay, we're going to use the count blank formula. Equals count blank, and what range? We want this whole range, all the deposit range up until L5. So count all the deposits that have a blank block in them. So there are 10 of them. Okay, so there we go. Making steady progress. I've got a feeling that's going to be the next question. Okay, 75. The number of visitors who chose surfing. How do I know if they chose surfing? Well, there's a little tick, or like a funny little symbol there, if they chose surfing. So we want to count all the ticks. Now, I can't just go equals count, because count counts numbers, and that's not a number. So we're going to use count A, which counts all the non-blank cells. So we want to count all the surfing blocks that have a tick in it. In other words, they have something in it. Count A, all the blocks in N5 to N64, and there we go. So there are 32 people that want to do surfing. Okay, great. Next question. 313. Visitors who paid 3,000 or more will receive type A accommodation, and those who paid less than 3,000 will receive regular accommodation. We must in D7, what type will that first family get? So it's based on how much they paid, and they will receive either that word or that word. So if they pay 3,000 or more and more, so that means there are 2 different things that we display. We either display in that text or that text. And if that's the case, we are using an if statement. Okay, so we use if statements also normally 4 marks because it's if plus the 3 parameters. So let's go, not there, let's go, yeah, boom. We're going to come here to discount. So we're going to say equals if. What I'm looking at that first family. They said the Carlson's Everett family. We want to look at how much they've paid. So they've paid, I'm assuming we're referring to the number in the deposit there. So we're going to look at that value. If that value, that L5, if that is 3,000 or more, so that means it's greater than equal to 3,000, comma. So that must be like that condition there in the if statement must be something that you can say yes or no to. So if looking at that, you can say that is a yes or a no, a true or a false. If it's true, if it is above 3,000, I know it's not in this case, but if it was, we would want to display the text type A accommodation. Okay, so I'm going to type that in there in double quotes because we want it just like it is. Type A accommodation. Okay, but if it's not above 3,000, if it's paid less than 3,000, then we want to say the word regular accommodation. So then in the formula, we put the criteria, comma, what must happen if it's true, comma, what must happen if it's false. If it's not above 3,000, we want to type in the word regular accommodation. So that's an if statement. The criteria, what it must do if that criteria is true, what it must do if that criteria is false. Enter. There we go. So we can see it's regular, yeah, because they've only paid 2,000. But if I had to change that to 3,500, then I want to be able to see that this has changed to type A accommodation. So let's undo that. Go back to 2,000. So there we go. Okay, so there we go. Let's go to the next one. Then they pay 2,000 deposit. Use a formula in cell to determine how much they paid in euros. So we must determine how much they paid in euros. So they paid 2,000. based on what was in the L5, and we must use that cell right at the top here. There it is. Must use that cell. That's the exchange rate for €1. So €1 equals that. So we're going to take the 2,000 that they typed in. So we can say equals the amount that they've paid. Let's always try use the actual cells. Don't try use hardcore values, because we want to be able to change the deposit, and this all these formulas must work accordingly and change accordingly. So whatever's in L5 must be divided by the exchange rate, which is G2. Okay, and that will tell me how many euros they must pay. So that's going to be, there we go. Okay, so that's the formula. So technically that's the exchange, that should be in euros. So technically we should probably change that format. That's not rands. We should change that to a euro symbol. So if we change that to a currency, let's change that to the euro symbol. I don't know if there's a euro symbol here. Is there a euro? Let's see. There's euro. So let's change it to that. So there we go. So you can see it's euro. Okay, so that's a euro symbol. I'm not sure if there's a mark allocated for that, but that makes more sense. You don't want to, that's 103 euros, not rands. Okay, so great. Let's move on to the next question. Now, let's just take a little proviso here. I'm actually going to do this question last. So I'm not going to come back to this question. And the reason is because I'll explain in the video at the end. But let's move to the rest of it, and we'll come back to this question at the end, because I'll explain to you at the end why I'm going to do that question last. So let's go to 316. We go into the large worksheet. Large worksheet, boom. And we want to change the tab color to blue. I don't know what that means. So right click on the tab. Ooh, tab color, make it blue. So there we go. So you can't see anything, but if you click away, you can see that it's blue. So we've changed it to blue, and use a spreadsheet to display all the visitors that will make use of the lodge accommodation. So we want to make a feature that makes use of the lodge accommodation. So let's just double check. They said only display all the visitors that make use of. So we don't want to display the other ones, but we don't want to lose this data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this table. Boom, 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 boom. Don't select the columns, just select the data, and we're going to insert a table. And by doing that, yes, my table has headings. Yes, they do. Now I can do some sort of filtering. So we want all those that say lodge. So I'm going to click on this option, and I want to display only the ones that say the word lodge. So I don't want hotel, I don't want holiday park, I don't want that, I don't want that. I just want the lodge ones. And by doing that filter, I now have only those. I haven't lost the other data, I've just done a filter. And you can also just unclear the filter if you want and stuff like that, and you can change it. So there we go. So I selected the text, boom, 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 and I went and inserted a table so that it can be used as this, and the headings are selected as well, and then we can now do lovely things and filtering based on the headings. So there we go. I think that is correct. Always remember to save regularly in between. I haven't been doing that, but we should be. And now we're going to go on to the chart or the graph. So let's go to the next question. I think that's all. Yeah. Now we're going to the graph. Now create a graph based on this data. It must look like that. And then there's some extra stuff. Only the visitors and the peak rate columns must be used. So we only want these two columns must be used. There must be appropriate graph. So we want that. I think that's a bar graph. Okay. With the correct data, and insert that title, and then we want to set the gap width to 50%. Okay, so now you can see it's nicely in order, so the values are in order. So if it's not in order, you should probably sort the data. It looks like it's already sorted, so that's great, but if you wanted to get it in that particular order, make sure that you sort it. And then we want just the visitors, so I'm going to select visitors, and now I'm going to hold down shift and say, no, not shift, control. I'm going to select visitors, hold down control. Don't lose your control button, because then you've lost control. I'm going to hold down control and select just peak rates. That's how you can select multiple columns, but that aren't connected together. I don't want this one. I just want those two. So I press control, or select the first bit, press control, select the second bit, and we want to insert a chart, and it's one of those charts, which is a column or bar chart. So we want this column chart. Actually, it's a column chart, sorry, not a bar chart. Column chart, boom. So there we go. I've got a column chart. There we go. So we want it like that. What are the specifications? There's all this. Look, it looks very similar. Eh? It looks right. Make sure that all the stuff on the side matches what we want, because you might need to change the axes a little bit, and all the fields are in the right order. At the bottom, Yeah, that looks like it's spot on so far. So we've done this right thing so far. We've used that correct. We've got the appropriate yes. Now we want Wild Coast Lodges to be the chart title. So I want that to be the chart title. So I'm going to come here to my chart. I want to just select that and change that to Wild Coast Lodges. You can do that if you want. And then I'm going to, what do we want? Set the gap width to 50%. I don't know what that means. So when in doubt, right click. I'm going to click, I assume it's the gap width over here. So I'm going to right click on it and go format the plot area. Or maybe it's format the data. Maybe it's the data. Let's right click here. Format the data series. Maybe it's that. And we're going to get to the series and we would go through the different, oh, we don't even need to. There's the gap width. We're going to set that to 50%. There we go. So I think they're going to end up being a lot closer together. The gap width, that is what they wanted. Eh? They said the gap width to 50%. So they said set it to 50. You can see they are quite thicker. So there we go. So let's go to the chart. So that's what we need to do. If you're not too sure, you can always go through all these other options and see what they want. If you selected all of those fields. Okay, so there we go. I think that's done. They don't specify that it must be on a different worksheet or anything. If they did, then you would need to, you can obviously go to it and then click on the chart, and you can then go to the chart options over here, and you can move the chart to another sheet if you want to. Okay, so there we go. We've done the whole question except for the one that I want to come back to. Now, the reason why I'm coming back to it is because I'll explain now. Let's go to it. We're going to go back to the first sheet. Boom, boom. Not that one. To come open. There we go. We're going to go back to information. Boom. And we're going to work in that little cell there because it says work in Q5. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm coming back to this is because I've looked at this question ahead of time, and I don't know why they've asked it. Maybe it's a thinking question. It's a lot of marks, but it's actually got work that is covered in grade 12. So I'm going to go through it. If you don't 100% understand it, that's not too bad. I don't know if they gave it as a thinking question for you to try to figure out, but it is work that is covered in grade 12. So if you want to give it a try, give it a try. If you're not too sure, I'll put a link to a video where you can go learn about nested ifs, but that you are going to cover that in grade 12. So let's have a look at it. We want to discount of the accommodation is based on the number of activities that the person chooses. Now, the person who chooses all the activities will receive that much discount on the peak rate. And if they choose 3, they get that. And if they don't, if it's less, then they get 0. Okay, so we must put in a Q5 formula to determine the discount rate for that particular person and then copy it to the other cells. So we want to work out the discount. If they've done all the activities, all 4, then they get 30% of the peak rate. If they get only 3, then they get 15% of the peak rate. And if they do less than 3, then it's 0. So do you see, with an if statement, we had 2 possibilities. And we can't do that with this example. We need 3 possibilities. So we're actually going to use a nested if. Now, it's quite a lot of calculations to be done. You are allowed to use other cells to do parts of the calculation if you wish. I'm going to break it down into that. I want to use this cell to work out how many activities they did. How do I know? Well, I want to count how many ticks there are. So I'm going to use, like we did before, I'm going to use the count A and say, count A, this family, how many did they use? They all. Okay, first of all, as long as you're on the wrong space, you must go right up to number 5, Q5. There we go. So over here, we're going to say equals count A, and we want to count how many of these blocks have ticks. So we're going to count A. Count how many of them are not blank. So there we go. There are 2 ticks there. And if I had to copy that down, you can see the different formulas. They can see they've gone to blah, 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 blah. Now that I've got that, now in this formula, I'm going to use the if statement. Equals if. If you can't do this question, just do what you can. You can do 2 of the options and see, and you would have gotten some of the marks at least. Now, if the number of activities they've done, if that block there that we just worked out, if that equals to a 4, if they've done all 4 activities, then they get, if they've done all the activities, they get 30% on the peak rate. 30%, so that's the criteria. Then they get 30%, so 30 divided by 100, that's how you do percent of, means times the peak rate. So for this particular place, that's the peak rate. Comma. Now, if you didn't know what else to do, you could have just done the 15%. If they didn't get it, then 15%. But if you do know, so that's the one option. Now we've got 2 options left. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put another if statement here in the false part. So if we get to this part, then we know that it's definitely not equal to 4. It will obviously be, or in this case, it'll be less than 4. But we know it's not equal to 4 if we get to this false part. So now I want to put an if statement inside of the false part. And if this value, that S5, in this case, S5 is equal to a 3, because it's not a 4, it can only be a 3 that's left over then possibly, then it's 15% of the peak rate. So then I'm going to type in 15 divided by 100 multiplied by the peak rate. So that's 15, not 5, 15. So if it's equal to 4, then it's 30% of the peak rate. If it's not 4, then we're going to go to another if statement. If it's equal to 3, then it's 15% of the peak rate. And if it's not, now we still need the false part of this one. So if it's not 4 and it's not 3, then the only other option is that it is a, now receive, it must be blank, left blank. In other words, we don't even want to put a 0 there. Don't even put a 0. So to leave it blank, you put double quote, double quote. Okay. So I close my bracket for the first, the inner if statement. There you can see the two red ones. And then I close a second bracket for the outer if statement. So if that's true, do that. If it's not true, then go to this if statement, which says if this one's true, do that. And if it's not, that's how you can do 3 possible options. And if I press enter, so there you can see they only did 2, so that's blank. But the next person down here did 3, so they get 15% of the peak rate. And if I copy that all the way down, we can go test to see someone who got 30% of the whole rate. So if I come down here, now you'll see like, why is the formula not working? Because the formula is based on this column, so we actually need to copy this formula down as well. So don't forget that. I'm going to copy that down as well. So there we go. Boom, 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 boom. So you can see, oh, there, where's the family that's done all 4? Have we got a family that's done all 4? There's a family that's done all 4. And we can move that back a bit bigger. And you can see that's, yeah, that's about 30% of the peak rate. That seems to be 30% of the peak rate, not 15%. Okay, so there we go. So you can see all the blanks for 2 or less. If it's 3 or more, you obviously got a value, but the 4s have 30% and the 3s have 15%. So that's how you do that question. Again, if you're not too sure on it, it is matric work. We will get you to matric, but you can look at that formula. You can look at it there, and you can see how to break it up into its little parts. Okay. If you didn't want to use this extra column, that count A, M5 to P5, then you could have just, instead of the S5, you would have that formula, that one there goes in place of the S5s if you want. But then it gets quite long and get quite complicated. That's why I break it up. Okay, so there we go. That's the Excel question done. It is quite long. It's 53 marks. It's more than a third of the paper, but that's where we got all the marks from. So hopefully you did well. If you need more revision on Excel, go to our YouTube channel, go to the playlist and look for the Spreadsheets playlist to help give you some more information on spreadsheets. And remember, don't do it the long way. Do it the Mr. Long way.